I'm Yo-Yo.
And I'm Katia. Welcome to our podcast.
Each week we learn from the experts about all things women's health and happiness.
We are two very normal, imperfect women.
Navigating this crazy thing called life.
And trying to stay happy and healthy while we do it. So, grab a cuppa.
Or tidy away that pile of laundry.
And enjoy our discoveries. Hello.
Hello and welcome to another episode. This time we have a guest.
We do, a guest episode today for you. And it's one we've not had before.
Yes.
All about your home, your interiors, and how important it is to your health and well-being and happiness.
Yeah.
Just to have a house that you feel happy in, like your environment. Because it's so important.
You feel happy in, it doesn't create little micro stressors throughout the day. Because all of us live in mess now and then. But we get so many...
Now and then.
Always.
No then.
So this episode gives so many little tips about how to arrange your home to suit your personality, to suit your lifestyle, your level of mess, which is absolutely fine.
Yeah, which everyone has mess, but it's more about how, it's just really interesting. So today we have Jenny Quinlan on from Studio JQ.
Yeah, her own studio.
Yes. So thanks, Jenny, for being on. But it was really lovely to chat to her.
She grew up in the northwest of England in a very small village, and she strongly values family, community, working hard and giving back.
Yes, and Jenny trained at the prestigious KLC School of Design in London, then moved on to work at several high-end design studios across London and the southwest.
She's passionate about not contributing to the creation of excessive waste, which, as she describes, can often happen in the world of interior design.
Yes, so Jenny's mission is to change the perception of the industry and transform it into something that builds communities, contributes to minimal environmental impact, and supports the artisanal crafts and transforms lives.
And from her website, there's a lovely little quote at the end of her bio, so we thought we would include that. And it says, "When fortune smiles upon you, build a longer table, not a higher fence." And we thought that was nice.
That's nice.
Yeah.
But this is, again, not just a women's only episode. It's very much an everybody episode. So we hope everybody can get something from this chat with Jenny. She was incredible to talk to. I'm full of inspiration, and I hope you all will be
Yes.
too. Are you?
I am.
Well, you tell me on Thursday.
Yeah, I am, definitely. We'll chat about this. Definitely. It's and also even if you don't know the first thing about interior design, you don't know where to start, the whole idea of it gives you the heebie-jeebies.
Or you don't even know what interior design actually is.
You don't
Sometimes
even know,
you're like, it's a magazine, that's styling, I'd say.
Yeah.
But
So if you are a complete newbie in this area, listen to this episode because you'll get so many interesting, actionable, budget-friendly tips, and you'll definitely learn something.
Yeah,
as we did.
Yeah. Well, we hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, I'll let you get on.
Yeah, enjoy. Hello, Jenny. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we are really looking forward to chatting with you because this is, again, you're the first interior designer that we've had on for all of our episodes.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to hear what you've got to say. And I heard you talk a long time ago at an event, a networking event. You did a brilliant talk. And from my understanding, your interior design strategy is all about how to make things practical as well as beautiful and a wonderful experience to be. But the practical element was high up in the list. Mm-hmm. So as like a top line overview, could you tell our listeners why someone should care about how their home is designed? What implications might it have for their health and happiness?
First off, there's a huge misconception about what interior design actually is. I think you hear the term interior design and you think pretty curtains, cushions, walking into a nicely designed hotel room, or, somebody's got a beautiful sofa in their living room. But humans have been interior designing their spaces since day dot, really. And the reason is because we want our environments to be nice, and we want them to be tactile and inviting and warm. And it all really starts with that physiological level. So your senses, what things look like, what things you touch, tactile textures, what things smell like. And that's always fascinated me. I've always been fascinated with architecture and the effect that it has, even just walking past a building or walking into a building. And it really does affect us from a health and well-being point of view. And that's really where we sort of base our whole practice really of what we do with clients. So a lot of the times when clients come to us, they're fed up with something. So either it's the house is too small, they've not got enough space for things, they want to entertain people and they haven't got the space for that, or the kids are leaving sports kits everywhere and everything's messy, or they just don't feel like their house represents who they are, their personality, and all of that stuff. These micro stresses all the time just can really, bring you down. So our job is to sort of strip that back and give them an environment that supports their health and well-being and their busy lifestyles and all that sort of stuff. And we do that through the tool of design.
Wow. Everything you said, I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how I feel. It is a stress. You don't really realise that micro stress where you're like, I'm fed up of doing this. It doesn't look right. And so I think sometimes people think it's like a vanity thing because it doesn't look right. But seeing that mess everywhere or not feeling that has a nice kind of effect and like has a nice kind of aesthetic pleasing to the eye can really like stress you out. I feel that all the time in the house.
Absolutely. Yeah. I noticed that in our household. That actually just this last week, because we're having a baby in 4 weeks, there was like piles of clothes everywhere, and the level of stress with me and with Michael absolutely went up. So yeah, the design, and of course with good interior design, it's less likely that things will pile up on the floor, kind of thing.
Yeah, well, from a practical perspective, that's so one of the things that we say is, which doesn't really sit well with a lot of people when they come to us, is don't tidy up for at least 3 days before we come, because the natural thing is somebody's going to come to the house. I need to put everything in cupboards, make it look okay. But actually, if clients do that, then we can't see where those natural drop zones are and how they actually live in their home. So if everybody dumps their shoes at the back door, or if the shopping bags pile up on the side, then we need to mitigate that in some way, because it's absolutely no use an interior designer coming in with this vision for a beautiful home, making it look amazing, and then people living in their homes and everything piles up again, and there's no storage where it needs to be, and the light switches are in the wrong place, and the bathroom's not laid out properly, and there's all these different practical elements. So it's like I always say, it's like a beautiful pair of high-heeled shoes. If they're not comfortable, it doesn't matter how beautiful they are, you're probably not going to wear them. But it's the same with your house as well.
Oh, wow.
That's interesting. So you're saying don't tidy up for a while, and then you see where the stuff piles up. And that's, where you need to address a bit of that interior design.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think a lot of people will try and fit their lifestyles into their homes. So if they've moved into a new property, or even if they've lived there for a while, they put things in certain places because that's where it's supposed to go, but that might not be where it should naturally be for you. Everybody lives slightly different routines, and everybody's got different hobbies, and some people like to eat in the kitchen, or they might want a separate dining space, and there's so many different variables that you can't just design a house that suits everybody. So yeah, that's where all the sort of practical stuff comes in. And then there's things that are practical for everybody, which where your towel rail is positioned in your bathroom, so you don't have to get out of the shower and traipse across a tiled floor with wet dripping feet while you get your towel, and there's all these sort of little nuances that is sometimes overlooked, I think, with interiors.
Yeah.
You just mentioned that how everybody's a little bit different, and this is a personal point, is how do you make it work for like a couple or a family who may have different ideas? So my husband is very like logical. Something has a place and it goes in that place and he's happy then, even if that place makes me feel physically sick looking at it, or like it doesn't work for me. Like he's away 5 weeks of the year, and he comes back for 3, so I'm there 100%, and this is like kind of it's his home too though, so I get it. But it is kind of that, like, how does people go and like trying to understand the priorities? I suppose, of when it comes to things like that, like the relationship counselling you have to do.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, we're marriage counsellors on the side, but we do often get that because some of our clients are older. They've been together for a long time. They've been married for years, and you get them on the other side of the table, and then they're having conversations about things that they've actually never talked about before. So kitchen design is the perfect example. So you'll have usually one person will go, I want everything streamlined, tidied away. I don't want to see any spatulas and salt and pepper shakers and, everything in cupboards. But then you find out that they're not actually the person in the home that does the cooking. So, the person who does all the cooking wants everything, they want the oils and they want the spices and they want everything, just out and usable and practical. And it's finding that happy medium, whether it's the way you design how the things go on the worktop or whether we're clever with storage and stuff like that, and just try and find that sweet spot, which sort of makes everybody happy. That's what we try and do anyway.
Oh, so it kind of is like a big consulting process, like looking at the house first of all, and then it goes into like talking to the people who live there and seeing like, so you kind of do like a big thing first and then go into like designing it.
Communication.
Wow.
And it's interesting that you say that actually people will never have actually talked to each other about this aspect. So that's also a takeaway point, is that people should just talk to each other about this doesn't really work for me. Is there something we can do about it? Can we make a practical?
Yeah, but then why would you start that argument? You just get get a relationship counsellor, interior designer in, and be like, we're going to lay it on the table. Tell us if we can have both worlds before we start arguing about this.
But I'm curious, what are some of the worst mistakes? I mean, this sounds really negative, but what are maybe the funniest mistakes or things that you see people do that to your design mind is like, whoa, stop, what have you done?
I mean, the funniest ones for me when I see a new client is they'll tell me what they like. So like, I like to read, or I like to do crafts or things like that. And then you look around their house and there's no sign of that anywhere. Like, oh, I'm, a really prolific reader. Okay, well, where are all the books? Where's the bookshelves? Or, well, they're not here, or they're in storage, or I like to sit and relax. Okay, well, where do you do that? Or we don't. Okay, so your home doesn't really work for you. So I think getting people to start thinking about how they want to live in the space is number one. In terms of design errors that are really common, spatial planning. So the way that you interact with everything around you, particularly with if you've moved house or you've moved into a new property and then you've gone and done the big shop at IKEA and bought the sofa and the bed and the side tables and all that sort of stuff, and you filled your home with things, they might not fit in the space. So a lot of the time we try and reuse what we can, maybe move it to different rooms, but we measure out meticulously to the millimeter how big the sofa should be in terms of, scale to the space. And it's often just the smallest little, 5 centimeter difference in the size of a piece of furniture can make such an impact. What else? I think impractical design. So things like touch points, what we call touch points. So that's things that you touch on a day-to-day basis, handles, light switches, sockets. If they're not in a practical place or they're not very ergonomic, then again, back to those micro stresses, it just makes everything a little bit worse. And they're just such easy fixes that it doesn't take extra budget. It just takes a little bit more thinking and forethought. And then I think lack of personalization as well. So walking into somebody's house, for me, I want to know who lives there. I want to walk it, whether it's messy or whether it's colourful or whether there's stuff everywhere. I'd like to walk into a friend's house and go, oh, I know who lives here. They've got art on the walls, or they've got the kids' pictures stuck on the fridge, or whatever. They've got dog beds in the kitchen. That sense of home. Whereas I think if people want to design their home, they think they have to strip everything back and make everything quite nice and tidy and minimalist, and oftentimes you walk into those types of properties and feel a little bit uncomfortable. So yeah, lack of personalization. Just be a little bit braver of what your personal style is, I think.
That's nice to
Nice.
hear. So if you have a thing like, I love this kind of thing, you can just go for it. Like I
Yeah.
love books. I want to have like a bookshelf in every, or a little book cupboard of books in every room, or yeah.
Do you see when you go back like the difference in people's picture? Have you ever had any examples where you've gone back and they've just seemed like a different person because you've like solved a lot of things?
Yes, yeah, definitely. And I think probably things that they weren't expecting. So we had one client who, which comes straight to mind straight away. She had migraines all the time, quite a high powered professional, and it would sort of debilitate her for days on end, where she'd have to literally stay off work because she had these terrible migraines. She'd been to the doctors and all this sort of stuff. Nobody could really find what the cause of these migraines were. And I went round for our first initial visit and sat in the kitchen, and they were sort of having this big extension put on the side of the house. And I don't suffer migraines, thankfully, but the acoustics in that room and the lights that were in that room were just so overbearing. Everything was a hard surface. The LED lights were too blue in terms of the color temperature, and they were flickering because they were low quality. And after a 2 hour meeting, even I had a headache when I left. And I just, I said, it's naturally no wonder that you're suffering. And so after we sort of renovated and addressed the acoustics and changed the lighting system, her migraines decreased hugely, which, and I think that was probably a key contributor to that. So, sometimes you can have dramatic effects on people's health and well-being through interior design, which they don't anticipate because they don't know that certain things cause certain things. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Wow,
amazing. So
that's incredible.
lighting, temperature,
Hmm.
and acoustics.
Acoustics.
So what
Yeah.
can you go into detail? What did you do in that house? I'd be curious.
So some of the surface finishes we added wood in there because obviously kitchens you're not going to want a lot of soft furnishings. Easy, you want it to be easy to clean. Things like the bar stools where we could add soft furnishings we did. So window treatments, bar stools, upholstered dining chairs rather than hard plastic chairs or whatever they had. Um, and then just things like the worktops. So we had a wooden worktop on one portion of the kitchen surface. The doors, instead of having flat panel doors, we chose a door style that was slightly different. Adding ironmongery in there, just trying to soften the textures in there. And then with lighting, so when I talk about color temperature, I mean, I could get into all the sort of technical details, but I won't. But really, the color temperature, if you go and buy a bulb at the shop, generally if you look on the back of the box, it'll say the color temperature is measured in kelvins with a K, and it's usually 3,000 to 4,000 Kelvin, which if you think about a color temperature scale going from orange to yellowy, then blue, which is cold, then 3,000, 4,000 Kelvin is quite blue. It's like a white light if you think about Christmas lights. Whereas when we do our lighting designs, we go a little bit lower towards the orange scale of the spectrum, and go for 2,700 Kelvin, which is only marginally different, but it's proven in studies that color temperature, as humans, that's what we're most sort of akin to. So I always talk about in evening light that if you want to sit and relax in an evening, you don't want to turn on a light that is then giving you bright blue midday light. You want it to be softer, which is a huge mistake that a lot of people make in terms of their lighting, and just making sure that the fittings that you choose are really good quality as well, because you do get what you pay for. Now everything's LED. If you go for a really low quality cheap light, then it's going to be flickering on and off, and people who get
Ooh,
migraines are really susceptible to that.
yeah.
So yeah, it is a big area to sort of tackle.
Yeah, I think if that
Wow.
was one thing you changed in your house is all the lights in, and to make them
Hmm.
appropriately dim and warmer and non-flickery,
Yeah,
that would make
yeah,
such a difference. I personally,
huge difference.
I
Yeah.
resonate so much with that client because I'm prone to migraines. And if I go into someone's house and there's like the brightest lights at night in the evening for dinner, it just
Hmm.
really bothers me. So I
Yeah.
completely am on board
Yeah.
with that.
So when you go into an office and those office lights and like they flicker and like you're in a, on like
Hmm.
a, and it's all very it's very clinical in there, and the sound when you go into certain meeting rooms, it's like, oh my gosh, like I have headaches, I can't concentrate in here, everything feels really hard. And I just feel that you do feel a bit, so even like workplaces and people where they work, that'd be such a big thing to like think about.
Yes, absolutely.
And schools as well,
schools,
all those kind of commercial style buildings, you want people to concentrate, and they can't. So it's no wonder. There's huge steps that we need to be taking in offices, workplaces, and school environments, which could make a massive difference.
We kind of spoke about just before off air about the green kind of element of environment, and then also, as you said, with schools and offices and things, and even like hospitals and stuff like that, where they're really important for well-being and health. Is there anything that you know about with like putting the lights, the acoustics, but what about like having like greenery, and do you work with like nature in what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I listened to your podcast with Professor Kathy Willis,
Kathy,
and I was just overjoyed because it's all the kind of things that we kind of talk about and we bang on about all the time. To hear somebody else, especially somebody with a professor at the beginning of her name, I was like, yes, other people are talking about this, and it is really, really important. And in other countries, if you look over to Asia, they're making huge leaps and bounds in biophilic design. So biophilic design is basically bringing the outdoors in, with plants, natural wood materials, talking about grounding, and all those terms that they're sort of drip feeding into the Western world now, as sort of trends, but actually they're really, really important. So yeah, if we can sort of get that into these kinds of environments, education, buildings, hospital environments, then I think people's well-being will have it'll be much more positive environment to be in, because at the moment they're really clinical and stagnant. And I think the statistics are, we spend about 86.6% of our time actually in a building. And as humans, we're not designed to spend that amount of time indoors. So whatever we can do to make that a nicer environment to be in, which is more holistic and healthy, then yeah, absolutely. So we do encourage clients to add indoor plants, especially air pollution is a huge thing wherever you live. We're really rural here. We're really lucky, but we still add as many plants as we can. So I think that the top 5 that we tend to specify, because I kill plants very easily, even though we live on a farm. But we've got at home, we've got snake plants, we've got ivy, we've got spider plants, peace lilies, aloe vera, and they're all really easy to maintain. Even I can't kill them. So yeah, and things like that, and natural materials as well. I think we're surrounded by plastics and synthetic man-made materials, and the more wood and wool and linens and things we can add into our interiors, the better.
Oh,
amazing.
Yeah, it's something that you don't really think about, how much your environment, that you like the physical stuff around you. Yes, mess you think affects you, but the actual, just even if all the mess was gone, how much that space affects you, especially that statistic 86.6%. Like,
yes. We spend so much time inside.
It's so true, but I just never put it into that amount.
Yeah. And about plants. So it's pretty easy to get a low maintenance plant in a pot at home. But how easy is it to make a green wall? So I hear about the concept of the green wall, and I love it, but I don't know where to start. Is this something that you ever think about or design for people?
Yeah, we haven't done one in a residential setting. They're really popular in London offices. They're using them more prevalently. So there's one of the trade shows at the beginning of the year, which is in February, called Surface Design, which we always go to. And they have really good systems. So they're basically like a racking system that you screw to the wall, and then you put all your plants in there, and you can either have it self-watering, or it depends how much money you want to spend, but the green wall thing started as more as an aesthetic thing. So a lot of the green walls that they first brought to the market were actually plastic plants. Yeah, exactly. So you've got this wall that, from a distance looks beautiful, but actually you're just
That's
filling
such
your
a
home full of
I
shame.
know.
petrochemical toxins. So,
Yeah.
but the natural green walls, they use a lot of moss, which is fantastic for your system. And when I listened to the Kathy Willis podcast, and she was talking about the smells and how you basically absorb them into your system, and it changes your microbiome of your body. So anything you can add into your environment like that, yeah, definitely brilliant.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a bit of a random one because you mentioned like Asia, and like I was just thinking of the concept of feng shui was a big thing, and does it have some like relevance? As people sometimes think of it as a bit like too minimalistic or too kind of hard to achieve, but
Hmm.
is the kind of, I suppose, the fundamental of it correct in your opinion? Does it work?
Yeah, I mean, there's some elements of feng shui that we try and incorporate with all our interiors. Now, being where we're based, we've got some quirky old buildings that we're trying to work with and work around, so it's not always possible. I think if you're building a new house, then yeah, absolutely go for it. But it does have some relevance and some premise. So some people see it as a bit woo woo. Um, but it's all to do with the energies and the flow, and that even if you're not a yogi and talking about cheese and things, your energy flow is, I mean, it's scientific research, it does have an impact on you. So with spatial planning, things like where your bed is positioned, I mean, we're basically magnetic beings. We've got iron in our blood. We react the same as a bird does when they're flying from south to north and whatever it is, the migrationary patterns of birds, and humans are the same. So uh, the energy flow around your home is really important, and there are things that you can do in your home to try and improve that, I suppose, through feng shui. Yeah.
Okay, so it is
Oh.
kind of that premise of the flow of your house anyway. It affects your energy, and it's working with, because we live in quite an old house, and you're quite old, and the space isn't that lovely clinical, not that lovely square where you can suddenly put everything in. It's a
Hmm.
fireplace here. It's a random like steep staircase that comes around here. It's not
Hmm.
that lovely space. So I
We're
was just
limited in our
yeah, a
options
feng
of
shui.
our bed can only go in one direction. There's no
Hmm.
other way.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah.
on the top line summary, what are the few things from feng shui that you think people could try to apply in their homes?
I mean, yeah, again, I wouldn't get too hung up on it because I think uh, if you start going down that rabbit hole, and then you find you can't put your bed on an east facing wall, then you start to sort of think, oh my God, well, now I'm sleeping in the wrong position. And then,
Yeah,
you get
you
so
stretch yourself out.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. I think really just thinking about the spatial awareness of your home. So, if you've got any pinch points in your home where the furniture's too close together and you kind of have to squeeze through, that's not very good for the energy flow. Making sure the windows aren't restricted, so you haven't got anything blocking the windows, so you can let the light and the air in. Um, yeah, a couple of them. If you've got beams above your bed, that's not good. If you can move your bed and you haven't got a beam crossing your bed, there's also something called the coffin position. So if the foot of your bed faces a door, then according to Feng Shui principles, then you're more likely to die in your sleep and your soul flies out of the door. So you see what I mean about going down the
Yeah,
rabbit
yeah,
hole.
yeah.
Um, but don't panic if your bed does face the door. I'm sure you'll be fine.
Well, I feel like if I'm gonna die, I'd like to die in my sleep.
Well, there you go.
You know,
Yeah.
easy way to go.
Yeah.
True, true. We hope you're enjoying this episode so far. We'd love to help more women out there, so please subscribe, rate, and review, which helps more people find us. And share this episode with any friends who you think will enjoy it too. Thank you. And without further ado, here's the rest of the episode. True, true. Okay, that makes sense. It's all like kind of practical things that makes logical sense as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask a question on colour, because you said about being brave earlier and to add
Hmm.
add things that reflect your personality. So my previous history as a merchandiser, and I worked with buyers and designers in retail.
Yeah.
And I'm colourblind in comparison to them. So they'd be at the swatch box. And I'd be like, I do not see the difference. But, well, this one's more red and this one's more blue. And I'm like, I can't see. So, when it comes to like north colours, south colours, facing houses, like north facing, and the colours you
Hmm.
should have, Is that
Yeah.
like really recommended? Because I'm a bit colourblind in that sense.
Let's define things first, because I have no idea what you just talked
What,
about.
colour?
North and south colours.
No, north facing house, sorry.
Okay.
So if your house is north facing, you don't get the sun
Right.
in.
Okay.
Sorry, I was just like,
so if you have a north facing house, you have less natural light.
Yes.
And that apparently impacts the colour palette you should use. Is that right?
Yeah, it definitely does. Yeah.
Ah,
so
okay.
Sorry.
One of the biggest mistakes that people make is normally your house is orientated that some of the rooms will be north facing, some of the rooms will be south facing. And generally the rooms that are south facing, hopefully, if you're lucky, it will be at the back of the house with the garden, the kitchen, the rooms that you spend the most amount of time in. And then maybe the north facing rooms, probably towards the front of the house, will be the snug, the evening living room, those sort of cooler rooms. And the mistake that people make is they think that north-facing rooms, to try and make them feel lighter, they'll paint them in pale, cool tones, which actually has the opposite effect. So if you have got a south-facing room, the best thing to do is paint it in warmer tones and darker tones, because then you get that sort of cozy feeling. You can't, in this country with the grey light that we have, there's no way that you can make a north-facing room feel airy and bright, because it just won't. So the best thing to do is just embrace the darkness, just embrace the grey, cool light, and just try and warm it up with warm tones. And then if you have got a south facing room, you can pretty much paint it any colour, to be honest. Cool tones, warm tones, it doesn't really matter. It just depends on what aesthetic you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Interesting. So if you have north facing rooms, go with coziness. Like, it's never going to be a sunny room. Just embrace the dark, cozy, wintry feel.
Or that kind of, the tones in there are definitely like warmer, aren't they? They're red. Is it more reds that you'd get in that? Yeah. They're like they're more reds. Like
interesting. Yeah.
I can't see the difference if you put two swatches and tell me which ones. I have to trust like the paint experts when they say when they filter it out to me. I'm like, that's good.
This is a warm white. This is a cool white.
I'm like, okay.
It is interesting. So our master bedroom it's not north facing, but it's east facing.
So you get in the morning.
So it tends to be cooler, because the morning light, we often don't experience so much of the morning light because we're working and doing stuff. So in the afternoons, it always feels cooler. And then we painted it the same color as the other bedrooms on the west side, which is all the afternoon and evening sun. And we're like, why does this color look so different in this room?
Yeah,
it was like we had to change the color, because we just didn't. We loved it in the other rooms, but we didn't like it in that room. Yeah. Changes,
yeah. So, do you think people should? Is it okay to go for color in north facing rooms? Just is it
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Have you got any other advice about color palettes? If people feel like they are redecorating, do they need to stick to a palette in the whole house, or don't they? Like, any general advice for people?
So I think, number one is personal preference. So we all tend to like certain tones of color. So and going back to, I listened to Annabelle's podcast as well that you did, where she's does the color analysis, and I've been to Annabelle before, and if she watches this, she'll kill me because I got black top on and I'm autumn. But you do tend to prefer either earthy tones, or some people prefer bright primary colors, some like more subtle tones, and if you don't know what you like, then look in your wardrobe, because that tends to sort of give you an idea of, well, I really like navy blues, or I really like summery yellows, and you will lean one way or another. So thinking about your personal preference is number one. Thinking about who else lives in the house as well, because that's important. You might be in a relationship with somebody who just doesn't like color and they want to go all monochromatic, so then you want to be thinking about textures maybe instead of adding color. You can still get a really nice effect by using textures rather than tones. And in terms of keeping a theme through the whole house, I don't really abide by any kind of rules to that. I think you can have one room blue, have one room green, have one room orange. You do whatever you like, but it's nice to keep some sort of continuity through the house, whether it's just a little accent color in each room. So a little bit of, a red lamp in one room and a red side table in another, or something that sort of connects the flow of the house is quite a nice thing to do, I think, with colour.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And what about, let's see, so trends. You do see a lot of like Instagram trends and things, and I think often it's like maybe painting, for example, I see people painting the whole room
Colour drenching.
Yeah, so the walls and the ceiling the same color,
Mm-hmm.
or other trends. Is there stuff coming up that you see that is really cool or really useful, or maybe like, oh, that's going to age in about 2 years, people aren't going to do that anymore? Have you got any views on that?
Yes, lots. Yeah, I mean, trends is like fashion, so it's cyclical. What was fashionable 2 years ago is not fashionable now. If you see somebody wearing something that was fashionable a couple of years ago, you think, oh, that's outdated. You're living in the past. And interiors are the same. So I think what you want to try and achieve is more of a timeless, classical interior. So if you like something that's trendy, whether it's a wave-edged rug, or something like that, or metro tiles in your shower, then absolutely go for it if you absolutely love it. But don't choose something for your home that you're choosing just because you're refurbishing and that's the latest thing. It's like black taps, for example. I mean, they were popular a few years ago, and they're still really popular now. I won't specify black taps for clients at all, just purely from a practical perspective, not for any kind of aesthetic reason. I think they do look quite nice, but there isn't a black tap on the market that is scratch resistant. So because the way that they're manufactured, it's like a lacquer that goes on the brass that the tap's made from. So if you live in a hard water area, if you're cleaning your taps with Brillo pads and bleach spray or whatever you're using, that tap is not going to look great in 18 months' time. So if a trend is not practical, don't do it.
Yeah.
And it's also like, if you haven't got the budget, a lot of people don't have the budget to keep changing, like to redo a room and paint. It's such a big job to do yourself, and even if it's like to try and do it, you have to have the time and the budget and the energy, or pay someone to do it. So these trends are fine if you have all of that, but there's, as you said, they're not practical and they age very quickly.
Yeah. So going for a timeless design, it's like you redecorate when it's necessary because your kids have drawn on the walls or whatever, but you don't have to every 2 years change things up again. Yeah.
No, and I think from a sustainability perspective as well. I mean, I was having a chat to another designer that I know, and we were talking about repeat clients, and she said, "Oh, do you have repeat clients?" And I said, "Well, no, I wouldn't really be doing my job properly if I had many repeat clients." She said, "Oh, why is that?" And I said, "Well, because if they're coming back to me in 2 years' time, going, I want to redecorate everywhere, then I've done a really shit job." And she said, "Oh, well, we have repeat clients. They come back to us every 2 to 3 years and go, well, we want to redo the dining room that we did because we want to change it." And I just thought that's insane. It's the commercial side of things. Restaurants and hotels, they refurbish every 3 to 5 years on average. And you'll notice if you've got a restaurant in your local town and that they have a revamp, and then you walk in and it doesn't really look much different, but they've chucked all the furniture out and they've painted everything again. And it's just so not necessary. It's not necessary. So yeah, don't do it.
Oh, that's a good message.
That's a good thing. Yeah, that's a good message. So funny. Like, oh, I don't have any repeat clients. They were like, well, yeah,
we've got loads.
Yeah.
Bless them. Speaking of budget, as we had touched on before, if someone has a tiny space or a tiny budget and they just are feeling a bit fed up, like what would be your biggest tips for them, like to be, or for anybody to be like, these are the small things you can start with or look at
on a low budget? Yeah.
Low budget. I mean, yeah, you can do things on pretty much zero budget, to be honest. I think the number one thing is write yourself what we would call a client brief. So look at your room and go, what doesn't work? What do I want this room to do? Who's going to use the room? At what times a day am I going to use the room? What do I want to put in this room? And take anything out of there that doesn't fit that brief, whether it's not practical or you just don't like it. Get rid of it. Give it to charity. Sell it on Facebook. and remove things first, and then think, okay, well, what do I want to add in? And be really selective. So it's when you decide to refurbish, it's really tempting to get carried away and going to buy lots of things and buy new cushions and buy new curtains. But if you've got no budget, it's not practical, and it's not don't be putting things on credit cards and things like that. I think look on Facebook Marketplace is a absolutely brilliant resource. I mean, us as interior designers, we still use that to buy things for our projects, for our clients. Charity shops, antique shops, you can find amazing buys for a few quid, which, to buy brand new would cost you hundreds of pounds. And just being selective about what you choose. Don't just go and buy a mirror because you need a mirror. Think about what size that mirror should be, and what do you want a wood frame mirror? Do you want a metal frame mirror? Can you upcycle something? Can you move something from a different room and use that and give yourself a fresh look? But just the number one tip is just to have some patience. It's so easy to get carried away and want to redo something or fill a room with stuff. But the longer you can wait and actually really think about it and plan it, the better the end result will be, and it will last much longer, and your enjoyment of that space will last much longer as well.
Good tips.
Yeah, I'm feeling very inspired though.
Are you? Oh.
Yeah, but I always feel I get this and I'm like, right, my husband's probably he's probably going to not like the fact I'm speaking to you. He's going to be like, what's going to happen?
But that's interesting. So patience.
Yeah.
I think that's a difficult commodity. It's a rare commodity these days in most people's lives.
Yeah, patience. I think also social media doesn't help. Like, you see, if you follow any kind of accounts, it seems like they do these transformations in no time. Or you watch some kind of interior design masters, for example. If you watch that, they do it, and it's all this massive thing in a week they've managed to achieve. But it doesn't mean the quality's a good quality at the end. It doesn't mean that no one can really do that. And it's kind of it's nice to hear that, not everyone has those pristine finished houses. Take your time to live in a space as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do get like, why is everyone else finished? And I'm like, still not finished that wallpaper in like a week in.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you got any tips for kids' bedrooms? To know if there's something you look at, or if it's, go for it.
Yeah, I would say number one tip is involve them in the design. Let them have a say in what they want in their rooms, because kids are great designers. They're really creative, and they'll probably give you words of how they want the space to feel. So cozy, those kind of things that they'll talk about, and thinking about ways that you can incorporate that into their space. Children are small and young for such a tiny amount of time, that I don't think we should be designing children's bedrooms to how we want the children's bedrooms to look. I think that's their space, and they should have a say in it. So, and thinking about if they've got any additional needs, or we've got children. My youngest daughter is neurodivergent, so things like swing chairs are great, cozy little nooks are great. The different lighting, natural sort of tactile textures, bean bags, storage. So I think sometimes we can redesign a children's bedroom and think, oh well, the toys will go here, and then the clothing will go in this wardrobe and the chest of drawers. But that might not be how they live, and then you get really pissed off and frustrated that every time you open the door, it's just an absolute shit tip. So trying to think about how you can make your life and their life easier. Give them a laundry basket and encourage them to sort of chuck the clothes in. They might do, they might not, but you can try. If they struggle to remember where their uniform is and they're hunting around in drawers full of socks and things like that, buy them a little set of 5 drawers and put their clothes in for every day of the week. And then they get up in the morning, that's Monday, that's Tuesday, that's Wednesday, etc., etc., etc. You make it practical, streamline your daily routine, and then just let them release their sort of creativity, I suppose. Just encourage them to do that.
Nice. I like it. Good tips. And things like painting or big painted murals on the walls and stuff. Are you a fan of that, or wallpaper or things like that?
Yeah, I think why not? Yeah, it depends on why you're choosing it. I think if you're just trying to make a statement, and you're not really in love with the thing that you're putting on your wall, then you're probably going to get sick of it in 6 months' time. But if you see something and you actually really love it, then yeah, why not include it? It's like buying a piece of art, isn't it? Yeah, I think definitely take the time to find something that you really love, that you're going to enjoy looking at every day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Again, patience and think about it.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we've asked you for loads of practical advice. Thank you so much. But I'm curious, how did you get into this space, this career? What was your motivation, your why to get into interior design?
For as long as I can remember, I've always been fascinated with architecture. So I remember my first ever trip to London. My mum took me down there when I was 8 because I grew up in Lancashire, and she took me to the Natural History Museum because when I was 8, I was obsessed with dinosaurs. And but when we walked in that building, I was more fascinated with the actual architecture of the building than I was with the dinosaur exhibition. And it's still to this day. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to travel all over the world, but it is still my favourite building, and I can just walk around there for days on end. And just knowing and understanding how buildings have an impact on how we feel. So even a non-religious person can walk into a cathedral and think, wow, what an incredible space. The acoustics in there, the carvings, the detail, the floor, and there's an appreciation for that. So that's sort of where my fascination with buildings and spaces started. And then as I got older, I sort of, had various different jobs, and it was always sort of tied to property. And I never really took the plunge to do a 7-year architecture degree. And at the time, my children were small, and I thought, it's what I really want to do. And I was fortunate enough to find this design course, which was very architectural in its detailing, and it was not really conceptual. A lot of interior design courses, especially at uni, are very conceptual. We're going to design a hotel foyer and make the bar curved and all this sort of stuff. And then you actually find, well, it's not practical. It can't actually be built. Whereas the KLC course that I did in London for 2.5 years, it was very sort of orientated towards building regulations, spatial planning, lighting design, all that sort of those elements. So I did that, and then work experience and internships in London. And from there, just worked at a few different studios before setting up Studio JQ.
Wow.
Yeah, nice. So
That's incredible.
from quite a young age then. How young were you?
Was it 8?
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, no, I
wow.
think so. I was 26 when I went to KLC.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
But that Natural
yeah,
History Museum,
Yeah,
it's
yes,
insane,
yeah,
isn't it?
it's an amazing
yeah,
place. Yeah, yeah.
I
yeah.
don't, do you know why it's so different to the rest of it? Just randomly going to ask, is it because it's like a different period? Or was it something else
What the
first?
actual museum building
Yeah.
itself? So they actually called it the Cathedral to Nature, is what it's called.
Ah,
So that's why the building was designed the way it was, because it was supposed to. I mean, if you walk around there and actually look, every single motif that's carved is different from the rest. It's not, there's nothing sort of symmetrical. You have a monkey on that wall and a bird on that wall, and even the ceiling. I mean, at the time they wouldn't have had any electrical power in there when they built the building, but they still thought it was a good idea to put these painted motif tiles on the ceiling, which is, I don't know how many meters tall it is. Um, but just an appreciation for the space, I think, is what they showed there, and
mental.
it's beautiful. Yeah,
It is. It's stunning. It's just like you're just suddenly walking through all these like classic London town, and there's this huge building that just seems to be like grown out of like a magical, like kind of
yeah.
kingdom.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, you're
Oh,
making me want to go now. It's been a long, long, long
we seem to
time.
be going all the time. The kids love it. The dinosaurs.
Really.
Yeah, we jump on the train and we tell them we're going to go to a natural
Maybe
history.
next time
Oh,
we go, we
actually, we
can
love it. Yeah,
coordinate.
we'll coordinate. Yeah.
Anyway,
They,
but I'm curious. You already mentioned maybe. Did you mention some peeves? You mentioned kind of some trends that people might have, but Are there any pet peeves, maybe in social media or just generally in society, how people talk about and view interior design? Anything that annoys you?
Yes, lots. So I think the TV programs that are, like you mentioned earlier, interior design masters or whatever it is, and historically 60-second makeover and all that sort of stuff. Oh my days, no, just no. Let's not do that. It gives a false premise about what it is and how important it is for your health and well-being to have a nice environment to be in. You're never going to solve everybody's problems by painting things red and zebra striped and all that sort of stuff. And magazines as well. I think what people don't understand is when you open a magazine, a lot of that is just staged. It's not the way that it's been designed. It's, you've had a home stager come in and make it look beautiful. And the person that's in that magazine isn't living in that space like that. So again, it's just not real life. You need to design your home for real life. Unless you're fortunate enough to have live-in housekeepers and, if you've got children and dogs running around, it's almost unachievable. So it just sets people up for failure straight away. And then social media, again, you look at interior influencers, which are not interior designers, they're not qualified, showing these beautiful room sets and, they've redecorated with this or they've done this. And they never, ever, ever talk about the chemicals and the toxins that they're putting into their homes. They never talk about the surface finishes. They never talk about the provenance of where they've sourced things from, the microplastics in the carpets and the textiles and all this sort of stuff. And it's really important. Our homes are so toxic or can be so toxic and poison in our systems, and nobody ever really addresses it. And if anybody ever does, they're kind of sort of pushed to the side and go, we don't really care about that. We just want to focus on how pretty this room is, which is quite depressing, really, I think.
Yeah, it is. I also get really annoyed when people do things that they go to really cheap places, and they change like the decoration of the house for each season, but what they're putting in is just such cheap kind of, it's mass produced anyway, so the ethical side there, but the environment of the plastics that they're using is like, you don't need all that stuff for each like kind of season. We don't need Easter to be in, you don't need to have all these plastic eggs everywhere. Like, blow an old eggshell and like an egg that we used to do, like the Europeans do, and then use that and let the kids paint them. But it's just it's so commercialized now.
It's so much cheap stuff that probably ends up going to landfill much quicker than
and also it's not good for everyone's homes to be like putting more and more plastics in that they're not really. It's just
interesting.
It's just insane.
So it's probably a big topic that we haven't got time to go in, but just quickly on that toxicity side, what are some key contributors to toxic stuff in the home that people might need to look out for?
So fire retardant chemicals are sort of top of the list. So basically anything that you sit on or sleep on has probably been sprayed with some sort of toxic chemical. Look to change that if you can in the future, and you're buying a new mattress or you're looking for a new sofa or you're looking at fabrics that you're going to upholster things with. Wool is naturally fire retardant, so it doesn't need to be sprayed or back coated or anything like that. And there are probably a couple of companies in the UK now that are doing natural fire retardant surface coatings. It's all to do with building regulations, which needs a whole overhaul, but that's for another day. So yes, if anything's got the sort of cigarette tag on it, sofas and things like that, then you want to be trying to avoid those if possible, or maybe putting a throw on the sofa. And I think what chemicals that you're cleaning your house with can have a massive impact, and surface finishes as well. So there's something called, which is actually a medical term called new build sickness. Which is basically the new synthetic materials that go into building a new house, or if you're having a big extension renovation, they off gas for quite a long time afterwards. Their half-life of the product is quite long, and people are actually getting sick. They're having chronic illnesses, asthmatic breathing problems, and all this sort of stuff from living in these new spaces, and then it all off gassing. And there's things that you can do to mitigate that. If you have some level of control of what goes into the building, and you can choose the the materials, then great. If not, then opening windows, using natural cleaners like Purdy and Fig and Method and all that sort of stuff. Getting as much air through the building as possible, and yeah, using natural materials where you can, I think has probably the biggest impact. And no plug-in air fresheners or any synthetics like that. Yeah, bin those immediately.
Yeah.
Does this where water-based paints come into it as well? Is that where they're
Yeah,
better? Yeah.
but I think you have to be really careful with things like water-based paints or anything that says eco or green on the label, or sustainable, because quite often it's not. There's companies out there that claim to be eco-friendly and low VOC, which is volatile organic compounds, but like that new paint smell. Whereas there are really good ethical companies that do amazing natural products. So Graffinstone is a paint company that, I mean, their sustainability rating is just incredible. They are what they say on the tin. You know, it's a natural product, natural pigments in the paint. So just doing a little bit of research, again, back to that patience. You know, when you're sourcing things for your home, really read the sort of the small print of what you are actually putting in there. And if you ask a company what the ingredients are in something and they won't tell you, that's a red flag.
Okay. Well, that's really interesting, because I automatically thought if it was like water-based, like the VOC, everything, yeah, you're like, oh, you're doing, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That's my own, like, kind of not really understanding it though as well. I just believe what I'm marketed at there.
Yeah, that's so interesting, and it's an area I had not spent much thought on, and maybe our listeners
It's like,
also.
yeah.
So that's really useful. But I am realizing we're getting very close to our mark with you. We got a few more questions, but can you just explain to our listeners what you offer, how you might be able to help anyone who wants a little bit of help in their home? What kind of services do you offer?
So we try and offer something for everybody, because our sort of ethos here is everybody should have a nice home and be able to enjoy a nice home. So number one, I suppose tier one, if you want to call it that, we do one-to-one design sessions. So we call them Design Power Hour. So people can book online, come into the studio for an hour with us and talk about whatever they want to talk about. So if they're building something and they want us to look at the architect's plans, if they want to go through the samples library and choose fabrics, if they want to talk about where to source things from, that hour is entirely up to them how they want to spend that time. So that's sort of, the first stage, and the clients that choose that service tend to come back for a few sessions throughout the duration of their project, and then they can just talk about whatever is relevant that week. So one week we might be talking about bathroom design, next time we might be talking about lighting, and it just sort of, it's completely ad hoc, whatever works for them. Next tier on from that is our consultancy package, where we would go to the property and take maybe 2 hours on site to talk about that design brief and how they want their house designed and what doesn't work, and what they desire. Build a sort of picture of who they are and how they want to live, and then come back to the studio, and over sort of a 2-3 week period, we would put together a report for them, and then suggestions of furniture and fabrics and colours, and maybe a different spatial layout and lighting design recommendations and things. So it's almost like the consultancy package that they then implement themselves. It's like a how-to guide to follow. And then we have our sort of top tier, which is our turnkey clients that we look after. So we do everything from concept to completion. So right from designing the spatial layouts of the building, choosing all the doors and the windows and the surface finishes, right up to hanging the artwork on the wall before we hand the keys back and it's all finished.
Wow.
That sounds nice.
That sounds like the dream. Although, to be honest, I quite like a bit of DIY. So, but brilliant. Thanks for explaining that. And how can our listeners find out about you? Kind of website, social media, stuff like that.
Yeah, so our website is studiojq.co.uk, and on there they can book a free 15-minute consultation, and then it's got all our services listed on there as well. Social media, so Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, House and Pinterest, I think we're on. It's at the Studio JQ. Yeah, and on the website there's loads of free downloadable resources as well. So
Oh,
how to
great.
choose a right architect and how to think about colour and all that sort of stuff. So we try to, during the summer I tutor at Marlborough College Summer School, and then using that I get asked the same questions all the time. So we put together a few how-to guides, which hopefully will help people.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice. That's
fantastic.
brilliant.
Oh, some good freebies on there. I
Yeah, that's
like
good.
it. Yeah. So we just have a few last questions. Maybe one of your favorite ones.
I don't know why it's become my favourite. Is this
Because
because
you're the bookworm here.
I'm
You
a
love
bookworm.
books.
I love books. When you come around my house, you will see books everywhere, even though I
Amazing.
Kindle.
Mine too.
Have you got a book suggestion for our listeners, whether it's fiction or non-fiction, just something that you think people should read? It can be to do with interior design or just one that changed your life.
Can I have two?
Yes.
So I would say if architecture interests you or our relationship with architecture, then Thomas Heatherwick's latest book called Human Eyes is a fantastic book. Definitely pick that one up. And if you're a kind of visual person as well, there's loads of images in there. It's a really easy flick through read, but some of the content is fantastic. And then the one that I've just started reading, which when you start reading a book, you're like, oh my God, like I want to get through it and read it really quickly, but actually I want to take ages to read it because it's really interesting. It's a book called Feral by George Monbiot. And it's how he talks a lot about rewilding, but in terms of rewilding humans. So our
Oh,
interaction with nature and how we've sort of stagnated and sterilized ourselves against our natural way of living, I suppose, and how he sort of takes himself back to that, which is it's just. I think I'm about 4 chapters in, but every time I have 5 minutes, I want to pick it up and start reading it again.
I love books like that.
yes.
Especially, I love that where you were like, you want to get through it, but you just want to savor it.
Yeah. And you also want to tell everyone about it. You're like texting all your friends, you must buy this book.
Like, okay, crazy.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. I'm definitely going to have a look at those books.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, thank
you. So just finally, we ask all our guests this, and you can take it in your own very personal way. To you personally, what does health and happiness look like?
Health and happiness. To me, I would just say gratitude, because I think it's actually really hard to be happy and healthy all the time, because we sort of tell ourselves, well, I have to do this and that's not going right and I'm really busy and etc and I should drink more water and I should do some more exercise and the house is a mess and etc. But I think if you flip that on its head and think from a gratitude perspective of, I get to take the kids to sports club and I got to wake up this morning and I get to cook a healthy meal, and thinking of it from being grateful that you get to do these things. You don't have to be perfect at everything, but that's the way I approach it. And whenever I'm feeling a bit shit, I just sort of remind myself that I get to do these things. I get to be busy, and I get to run around after my teenagers and drop them off all over, all that sort of stuff. And it just, that then grinds me and makes me feel like I'm doing all right.
Oh, that's nice.
That's really nice. Thank you.
That's so true. I think I need to do more of that.
Yeah, same. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for today. It's been really interesting. It's been really inspirational as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, my head is firing. But
oh, good. Look forward to hearing your ideas. Yeah.
I need Jenny though. She's what I'm going to talk to you after we finish this.
Okay. Good. But Jenny, thank you so much for your time, because we know you're a very busy woman.
Yeah, thank you.
And
thanks for having me. It's been really fun.
If our listeners have any questions, could we get in touch with you? Potentially with
absolutely.
a few little questions? Fantastic. Super. Well, have a lovely rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, everyone. What did you think?
Yes, thanks for joining us till the end and listening all the way through. We have so much to talk about on Thursday, I think.
So much.
She unpacked quite a lot, and she went in lots of different directions. Like, we were throwing a few questions at her there.
Yeah, a real diverse talk, actually. And even right at the end of the interview, I was like, we're trying to draw it to a close, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute, toxins? Wow, it's a whole other topic.
Talk about the environment now, please.
Yeah. So much interesting stuff. We hope you learned something. Let us know if you did. Are you a complete newbie in this area, or are you interested anyway? Did you learn something? And of course, if you have some questions for Jenny,
she'll be happy to help you.
Get in touch.
Yeah, we'll put her details on the show notes, or send us a message in any of the ways on the show notes. But yes, we're happy to hear from you. We'd love hearing from you.
Yeah.
So please do get in touch. And we'll see you on Thursday, I think.
Yes, because we're going to discuss our own thoughts and takeaway messages, how we're going to apply some stuff to our lives on the weekly waffle.
You had to do
my hand moves. I've got like claw hand movements in the weekly waffle on Thursday.
Which is always a good conversation.
Yeah, lots of waffling.
Classic.
But for now, thank you so much for listening. Have a lovely rest of your week.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening all the way to the end.
If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can email us on hello@healthandhappinesspodcast.com.
Or we'd love to connect with you on our Instagram, Facebook or TikTok pages.
You'll find the links to all our socials and more on our website, www.healthandhappinesspodcast.com.
And lastly, before you go, please give our podcast a rating and a review. It really helps others find us.
See you next week.
Bye.